Welcome to the Super Speedway.
Welcome to episode 251 of the Super Speedway podcast, recorded Monday, August 29th, 2022. I'm your host, Eric Young, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, James Cush. James, I know I sound like crap tonight, but hey, man, I'm on the road. I am in Winston-Salem, North Carolina tonight as we record this podcast.
I am jealous. You are in the good part of the country, man, where the heartbeat of racing in this country, right down in Winston-Salem and Charlotte. Oh, it's awesome.
I am in NASCAR country, that's for sure. This morning we ate breakfast bright and early at 7 a.m. at a local restaurant here in town, and two people, the waitress and one of the people that was eating there, was talking about North Wilkesboro Speedway and Friendship and all these tracks down here and racing modifieds and all that stuff. And it's like, oh man, this is great.
And
this is good
and
stuff.
You thought, this is where I belong, right here.
Exactly.
That's the way I feel when I go down to North Carolina. I'm like, yep, this is exactly where I should be, right here.
This is my first time down here, but I already knew that it was going to feel like home down here. That's for sure.
Yeah. For sure, man.
So
we weren't sure when we were going to record this podcast.
Yeah.
But I think the rain delay maybe helped us in that sense.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was traveling all weekend, so it was kind of a matter of where am I going to be able to sit down? That's why we're low tech tonight. I didn't bring any of the equipment with me. I'm recording with my Apple AirPods over Zoom, and we figured get something out rather than nothing. And low tech's better than no tech, right?
Right. Well, we've got, it's a big end of the regular season. We got the playoffs, and just listen, we're going old school tonight. We're on Zoom. We typically have a little bit higher quality, but you know what? Who cares?
I was all set. I was all set on Saturday night. We got to the hotel in time. Got everything set up to watch the race. And of course, then they postponed it.
Yes.
They started with the 10 a.m. start. I got to watch the first 2 hours of it before we had to check out of the hotel at noon.
Oh man.
So I checked out. I shut everything off and just had it recording. We stopped. Where'd we stop? Just I don't remember where we stopped, but stopped right around the West Virginia border, and ate at a KFC, and I watched the remaining part of the race on my phone until the rain delay, and then listened to Sirius in the car as we drove. As soon as we got to a point where we were pretty close to the start of the race, we switched spots. My wife drove through the mountains as I'm streaming on my iPad in the passenger seat, watching the tail end of the race. So
good work.
Yeah. It was an adventure, but I managed to see just about every lap of that sucker, even though we ran it a day late.
That 3.5 hour rain delay, that's good travel time for you. So that works. That works well.
Yeah. Let's start there, James. I mean, I guess we can mention Austin Dillon getting the win to advance. We got our race winner to advance into the playoffs out of this race. But I think, probably the biggest story out of it was rain. You've got it here in the notes. Rain was the story all weekend, of course.
Yeah.
Rain was the story as to why the caution came out when it did. And rain was the story with a 3-hour rain delay with only 21 laps to go, which is something NASCAR hasn't historically done.
Yeah.
But this race meant something. So let's start with that, James. What do you think of the decision to hold out and get the rest of this race in?
I think there's so much on the line with this race. You can't, if you call the race with 20 laps to go, especially when you have all this daylight, you started the race at 10, there's a chance that these storms are going to push out, and you have lights at Daytona. You can't call this race and give it to Austin Dillon in a sense. So yes, you have to. Eric, I don't know about you. I mean, you were traveling, so but 10 a.m. start times. Oh man, those glory days of NASCAR on Sundays when they would start at 10 o'clock. Holy smokes. But
dude, my absolute favorite race ever was when we went to LA, and it was Michigan weekend, and the Michigan race started at like 10 a.m. in LA. Yep. It was heaven.
Yep. Isn't that great?
Yeah, you get up, it's done by lunchtime, and you have your whole day ahead of you.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, we complain about rain delays all the time, and they started a race at 10 o'clock, and hey, we had time for a 3.5 hour rain delay and could finish the race. How about that?
Right. We still didn't have to turn on a light.
Right. So my I guess my throwback to you, Eric, is the issue with the rain that brought out that last that last red flag, I guess, well, the rain before the rain really came, the crash. What did you think? Like, it's so hard. I don't even know how to phrase this question or how even to ask it in the proper way, because I feel like if you're in Florida, these storms just pop up and things happen, and Daytona is so massive. I guess, in your opinion, is there anything NASCAR could have done there to avoid
I
that
mean,
massive pileup into turn one before that
cer-
caution, I guess, came out?
certainly no one knew it was going to rain, right? I mean, there's no radar data, no people in
Yeah,
the stands looking at the clouds coming in. I mean, nobody knew it was going to rain. It just came out of nowhere, right? I
I
mean, right?
guess. I mean,
No, it
from what
didn't.
I from what I saw on TV, that was a big wall of rain that was coming.
Yeah,
And I just feel like we could have avoided that big wreck and called it a little sooner rather than later.
I don't
Because it
I don't really
downpoured
want to
right after that. But
I don't want to pick on NASCAR the weekend before I'm going to a NASCAR race
yeah,
as a
yeah,
credentialed media member, but I guess if we were already in the mindset that we're going to get this race in no matter what,
yeah,
then what was the damage in calling the caution a lap earlier than we did?
yeah. We could have erred
You
on the
know,
side of caution.
part of the problem comes down to you can't believe these drivers because the guys out front are going to scream
Oh,
that it's raining because
screaming.
they're
Yeah,
leading and
yep,
so you can't just say, well, we were all saying it was raining. Well,
yeah.
NASCAR is not going to listen to that because you guys
We're
are
screaming for it.
trying.
Yeah,
Exactly. You're trying to determine the race for yourself. So I
yeah.
can't put it on that.
Well, and
One of the
I'll say
concerns.
too. Sorry, Eric. I was just gonna say I'll say too that there was rain coming down 10 laps into this race, and I
Yeah,
actually messaged our group and said, "Oh, here we go," because NBC went to caution. I'm like, "Well, they're gonna come back to a red flag because it's starting to rain," and it drizzled just enough to where it was getting on the windshields, and they never called it, and they just kept racing. And I'm like, "Oh, well, maybe that's what they do. They just kind of push through it." But anyway, I'm sorry, I cut through your point there. Go ahead. What do you got?
yeah. I mean, just I don't know.
It's a
I think
mess.
in the past we've called cautions quicker for rain than we have the last couple of years.
Yeah,
Um, at the same time, we would throw a caution and we'd run caution laps, and the drivers would be saying, "Hey, we should just get back going." But
yeah,
I would rather be under caution and have the driver saying, "Oh no, the track's fine, let's go,"
yeah,
than not be under caution and find out that it's too slick. You know what I mean? I think this
yeah.
is one of those instances where you got to err on the side of caution.
Well,
Um,
let me
I
throw
guess
this one. Let me throw this one at you, Eric. So NASCAR officials could err on the side of caution, right? What about a driver? I'll just pick randomly. I don't know, Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott. Let's just use those guys as an example. If they see rain on their windshield, why not try to back out of it? I guess listen, I'm armchair quarterbacking guys going 195 miles an hour into turn one. But why not like get yourself out of that position, especially with like 22 to go, where you've got some time? I don't know. I feel like they could have used
James,
everybody could have used
you
caution, but
you watch this race, right?
I did. Yeah.
You watch Saturday's race, right?
Well, Saturday's race was pretty late.
I mean, these guys,
Well, it was technically,
they
what was it, Friday's race going into Saturday?
yeah, they already don't have the brains to stop.
They're not stopping. I know what I'm
Not
doing when I
wreck.
ask
You
that
know what I mean?
question. Yeah.
The
I
things
know
we've
where
seen
the
them
answer is
drive
going to go
through.
when I ask the question. Like I already can see that, what that is, but I'm just
Yeah,
going to throw it out there.
I don't think you can put it on the drivers. I think, one of the concerns I have is I think, I would really like to hear NASCAR or have a media member who actually has some good access to NASCAR get with NASCAR and do a story about the spotters at the track. What does NASCAR have for spotters at the track?
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
I don't know how accurate the information is that I have is,
Hmm.
but if it is accurate, then there are significantly fewer spotters than what you would expect at a
Yeah.
2.5 mile racetrack.
Yeah.
Um, so that concerns me a little bit. I don't know. You know, I guess what it comes down to, James, is crap happens. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
I get these guys were upset, but I think I forget who it was that said in the interviews after the race that if they'd have gone another 300 feet, they were wrecking anyway. So I don't think the rain just caused
Yeah.
the wreck to happen sooner. They were not going to make it all the way back around another lap without wrecking.
Yeah.
They were driving like idiots.
Yeah. Well, they all knew
So
the rain was coming. So
exactly. So I don't
yeah.
know. I mean, it really sucks when when the field wrecks and it's
Yeah.
pretty obvious that it was because of rain.
No,
But
nobody,
NASCAR's not going to win every one either. So
right. And nobody puts I guess nobody pours water on a fantastic event quite like NASCAR. And I'm no pun intended in that.
right.
But how many times do we have this something that we're looking forward to come about, and then we're like, oh man, I wish it would have gone this way or that way. I wish that wouldn't have happened, or I wish the track wouldn't have fallen apart.
Well,
Like how many
here's the
times
other thing.
does that happen?
The other thing is that these guys were going 195 miles an hour
Yep.
for however many hours they were doing it. They all hit a bunch of rain. They wrecked. They just had Denny Hamlin had a really hard impact. He said one of the hardest impacts he's had.
Yep.
And then they went to the infield care center. They got checked out, and within seconds, they went outside and had a microphone stuck in their face.
Yep.
Of
And
course,
the sun was shining.
yeah, of course they're going to be overly critical about it. And
Yeah.
I bet you when you stick that same microphone in Denny Hamlin's face this weekend and Justin Haley's face, Justin Haley already changed his tune by the time
Yeah,
he
he
got to his
backtracked
phone
it.
and tweeted.
Yep.
So, these drivers are just pissed off because they just wrecked.
Yes.
And I think once they all settle down and we go into next weekend, it's going to be a totally different story. So
Well,
I think it's less of a story than what it could be.
yeah.
But
Well,
I guess the most
these
interesting
guys
thing
hate
is
this.
the guy who was leading when the caution came out and then sat through a 3-hour rain delay was the guy who ended up winning the race. Still.
Yeah, I know, which doesn't happen very, very, very often. So
it helped that there were only like 3 cars that weren't damaged, and his was one of them.
oh my God. Yeah. I mean, Austin Dillon, I guess that's our transition point to get out of the rain. But Austin Dillon catches a lot of crap for nepotism and driving the 3 car and all this other nonsense, right? But man, just somehow I like when he got up out front after that, when that caution came out and those guys wrecked and Austin Dillon squeaked through, and I looked at the screen and I kicked myself. I'm like, oh man, James, why didn't I think of Austin Dillon for this race? Because it's like a no-brainer that he's going to be involved. He just finds a way sometimes. It's crazy.
That drive he had on the apron to get through that wreck too was just magnificent.
Yeah, I know. Harrison Burton's right in front of him spinning. I mean, it was nuts. It was nuts.
Yeah, I think Dillon's probably not a Hall of Fame. Maybe, but probably not a Hall of Fame driver.
I guess if you count his Xfinity Series title and truck title, I don't know, but
maybe he's also the first Eldora Dirt winner. But
that's right. That's right.
And he's won the 500, so I don't know, maybe, but he's not a Kyle Busch, he's not a Denny Hamlin.
No,
but he's a good driver still.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people underestimate his talent. He really is a very good driver.
Yeah, he doesn't put up massive numbers, but he also doesn't drive for Hendrick Motorsports. He's Richard Childress's grandson, so he's there. I think people might find it surprising a couple of stats on him. He's one of less than 100 drivers in the history of the sport to have 4 wins. That's a decent size list, but there's a lot of guys who have driven in the Cup Series. Also, you may not think about it this way, but his average finish is the exact same as Tyler Reddick, who we consider a championship contender. It just doesn't look the same when you look at the top 10s and top 5s. So he's got some of the same stuff. He's not an overwhelmingly remarkable talent so far in the history of his career. I mean, he's only led 100 laps in a season one time. He's only had double-digit top 10 finishes one time in 10 full seasons, or 9 full seasons of Cup Series racing. So he's not not overwhelming, but he's made the playoffs a bunch of times now too. So this is, I think, his fourth trip to the playoffs. So this guy, of course he's going to play the spoiler in this show and kick Martin Truex to the curb a little bit. So
and we joke too that Dillon is one of those drivers that's good for probably a win a year, like Kurt Busch is right now.
Yeah, that's about right.
And another thing to consider with Dillon, with his resume, is he's one of those drivers that's got to win in all 3 series too.
Yep.
So
yeah, he's got championships to boot, and Yeah, interesting. Just interesting. Just an interesting career that he's got going on, and I don't know. Later in this episode, we're going to talk about our first 4 out for the playoffs as we kick off the Cup Series playoffs here. Where does Austin Dillon fall in that line? He hasn't had like this amazing season, but he's in there. Richard
Yeah.
Childress is in there, and Eric, I think this is a good place to talk about Tyler Reddick being the company man.
Yeah.
Blocking, giving Austin a chance there after we got back to green. Austin kind of bulldozed Cindric out of the way and and got out front, and that gave Tyler Reddick plenty of time to get behind him and block his way around. So
Yeah, when Reddick
pretty
got
crazy.
behind him, I knew it was over because there's no way Reddick's passing him.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah, Reddick
Even with Reddick's current situation, he's not passing him.
Yeah. Do you think Pop was a little more pleased with Tyler Reddick after that race
I'm sure he was a
than he
little
has
happier.
been? Yeah. Yeah, I know Pop's been pretty fired up. So
We'll
crazy.
be at the RCR shop tomorrow. Maybe I'll ask him.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I'm sure
You
they've got to
mentioned
be there. I would assume pretty close.
you would think so.
Yep.
You mentioned Martin Truex Jr. getting knocked out. Ryan Blaney has a wreck early. I think Steve Letarte says on the broadcast he's done, but he wasn't. They managed to fix the car and get him back out there, and he's able to hang on
Man,
to beat Truex by 3 points.
I'm telling you, what a and we got to mention Kurt Busch here. We talked about, and it's kind of stealing our segment from the news, but last week we weren't sure what Kurt was going to do. We talked about, should he sit until the playoffs and give himself a chance? But he decided they're not going to take the waiver. They're going to sit out. And that opened up a second spot in the playoffs for a guy who hasn't won yet. And I'm telling you, when Blaney got in that wreck, that car, I wasn't sure that car was going to be able to keep going, but the team fixed it up, and kudos to them. They kept him on the track and hoping that they would get enough attrition, which they did. Guys kept crashing and kept crashing and kept crashing. And here you got Ryan Blaney, 6 laps down, 15th place. And it's enough because Martin Truex Jr. also was damaged and could not score the points he needed. Just an unbelievable day for Ryan Blaney. He got up to 22 points on the day, and that was the difference. It's unbelievable. Martin Truex Jr., Eric, I was listening to the teardown a little bit, and they had reminded me of some of the mistakes that 19 team has made, and none of them worse than Nashville when he pitted when he wasn't supposed to. He got the message wrong. Do you remember this?
Yep.
And that pit stop right there knocked him out of a top 3 position all the way into I think he finished in the 20s. And that one moment alone gets him in the playoffs if he doesn't do that. It's just incredible how close
he had the run in with Chastain at Dover too. That cost him more than 3 points.
It's a bunch of little moments where if you just change one thing, you make one decision, you stay out of one accident, and you're in. And Martin was on the lead lap late, but as we saw, his car was too beaten and battered. He couldn't stay with the group and was in the playoffs with about 10 to go, and just kept losing positions, and it wasn't enough. Unbelievable.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up too, James, because that's something I think that people need to remember. I got sucked into a thread on Facebook yesterday of people complaining about and using this as an example that Truex is so far up in the points that it's just appalling that he's not able to make the championship, that the drivers below him in points made the championship. This system sucks. This is why this system sucks. What you said right there is why the system doesn't suck, because you get extra reward for winning, but it also matters what you do all season long.
Yes.
And if you look back on Truex's season, there are points in the season where you can go, that's where he fell out of the playoffs. It was not this race. You don't come into this race with a win being your only opportunity. You don't come into this race having a chance to fall out. You do your homework before this race to not have that happen. And I think that's a testament for, the old system. You would have drivers that would win a bunch of races but weren't consistent.
Yep.
And they certainly should have been considered for the championship, but they weren't, because one race out and they were done.
Yep.
And so, or somebody like Matt Kenseth could sit there and just points their way through every week. and get top fives and win a championship, or be one of the few drivers running for a championship. And
Yep.
I'm sorry, I don't see this as any example whatsoever as to why this system doesn't work. I think this is every example of why the system does and why it's a good system,
Yes.
and it's just so good for our sport.
Yeah, we've never had a season like this so far with the playoffs where the win NASCAR has emphasized winning since they moved into the chase / playoff format. And they've emphasized winning more and more and more as we've gone along. But with the season, this new car, everything that we've got going on, it's never been as important as it is right now. And, the cut line has never been higher. I think Truex at one point in this race was second in points or third in points and was still below
Yeah.
the cut line. So,
Yeah. And
winning
we got a
cures it
preview of
all.
this too, James. We
Yeah.
saw this a few years ago in the Truck Series, because we had a Truck Series playoffs that the only driver who made it in on points was the guy who won the regular season championship. I think it was Grant Enfinger at the time.
Yep.
And because Michigan was the closing race, I remember being there for it.
Yep.
And so this, I mean, it's easier to happen in the Truck Series because there's fewer spots to race for to begin with.
Yep.
But you also don't usually get as many winners in the Truck Series either. So, I mean, none of this should have been a surprise to anybody. It certainly, and that's the thing, is like every one of these guys it fills out the same entry sheet that everybody else does.
Yep.
They know the rules going into this, and this is the system. Like it or not, this is the system, and I think it works. I think it makes it so much more exciting than it used to be.
Yes, go out there and get your win. Alex Bowman, not a great season, got his win. Chase Briscoe and heck, Austin Cindric at the Daytona 500. You get your win, and you can feel a little bit more comfortable. Not so much this year. We were kind of on pins and needles there.
That's the thing, is like you couldn't even feel comfortable this year with a win.
Yeah. Yep. You had to perform.
Again, just another example why this system works.
Yeah, but if you're Martin Truex Jr., who has had performance but without the win, if he gets that win, he wouldn't have had to worry about it. He was high enough in the points. He is, man, his points. Yeah, well, he's still fourth in points.
You looked at it?
No, I've got it. He's ahead. So here's the guys he's ahead of right now, point total wise. Kyle Larson, championship contender. Ross Chastain, you would make him a championship contender. He's ahead of Chris Bell, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, William Byron, Tyler Reddick. He's ahead of all these guys. But just unfortunately didn't make it this time around.
I think that's the story that's getting buried with this whole storyline, is that, I mean, both Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr., but even more so Martin Truex Jr., 26 races in the season don't have a win.
Right.
I mean, Blaney technically does because he won the All-Star race. I mean, it doesn't count towards this, but he at least has taken a checkered flag. Truex hasn't. I mean, this is a team that won like crazy the past few years.
Yeah.
So that's the story everybody's overlooking. That's something we need to be looking at versus the fact that he was high in the points without a win and didn't make the playoffs.
Yep. It's I mean, that's the system. You can feel bad for him if you want, but it sucks, but he can still go out there and win some races. He's just not going to be able to win a championship. So it is what it is. Now, the interesting thing with Kurt Busch's absence, I think, especially in this scenario, Truex and Ryan Blaney are both out of the owner's points, which actually is a big deal because it devalues their charters. Because they're not going to be in the playoffs. It's going to hurt their average. Basically what those charters do in a nutshell is it takes a handful of seasons and it averages out your standings, and that adds value to those charters and it affects your payouts, right? Both those teams, that 19 charter has been really good, going back to Carl Edwards making the Final Four and then transitioning over to Truex over the last few years. Now you're looking at a charter that doesn't have a playoff, and now Roger Penske with the 12 car, they don't have a charter that's in the playoffs. You've still got you still have the 45 in there. So so that's an interesting kind of caveat to what's going on here. We haven't had this in the Cup Series very often, Eric. I mean, we know from the Xfinity Series we're going to have we've had owners points before, and some teams winning those owners championships without the drivers. It's going to be interesting. I don't think it's going to do much in the long run. I don't know if that 45 car is going to last very long. but still it does affect things. So pretty interesting to keep an eye on that here moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. One other thing to look at with this race, obviously we had tons of attrition in this thing.
Oh my God.
That
Yeah.
especially when you wreck the entire front, I mean, most of the field.
15 cars, right? That yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens when the track is soaking wet. But that last restart looked like the who's who of the back of the field.
Oh my God.
Minus Austin Dillon up front.
Yeah.
So just to look at here, first of all, we had 16 cars running at the finish, according to the post race statistics. You got Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick up front. Austin Cindric, obviously, Daytona 500 winner, not surprising. Then you got Landon Castle in fourth place. Noah Gragson in fifth, which is maybe less shocking, except for the fact that it's the Beard Motorsports car, not the Khaled car. With fifth. Cody Ware with a sixth place finish. Cody Ware was set to finish third if the race would have rained out.
Yeah, he was right there. Harvick was still in second, but Harvick didn't make the call back. Obviously, that car was destroyed, but was still second.
BJ McLeod gets a seventh place finish. David Reagan ninth place. Ty Gibbs with a 13th place finish, and then now you're back to the guys that there's the guys you expect to be toward the front. But holy cow, man, there were some big stories that could have happened at the end of that race.
Yeah.
I mean, I think probably bigger with Austin Dillon getting the win because again, it shakes up the playoffs a little bit more.
Yep.
But
that's right.
Holy cow, is one of these teams, Landon Castle or Cody Ware or BJ McLeod gets a win, and that's a career changer for those guys.
Did you see the guy who had the $13 bet and won basically $1 million?
Yes. Holy cow.
Yeah, because he had Castle. I think who did he have? Castle, Ware, McLeod, and Reagan to finish in the top 10 and hit them all. That's incredible. And then my wife looked at me and said, "Well, how come you're not doing that?" And I'm like, "Well, it's not that easy." So
yeah,
pretty crazy. None of those guys, I don't know. I mean, I was waiting to see if there was going to be an opportunity for any of them to make a push, but none of them seemed to be able to get the run. And with Tyler Reddick blocking Austin Dillon, it was just not going to happen.
Dillon just had too good of a car without.
He was the only one not destroyed up there.
Yeah.
Cindric too, but he punted Cindric out of the way. So
BJ McLeod, Cody Ware, those cars were clean, but they're just not the same as
they don't have they don't have the horsepower underneath the hood. That's not going to get it done. Now David Reagan probably did have the horsepower. He's got that car's listed under Rick Ware. That's a Stewart-Haas entry.
Right.
But it's I should say it's a Rick Ware entry. It's a Stewart-Haas car. But yeah, they couldn't group up. It just wasn't going to that finish to that race looked like 1994 Daytona before we were pack racing. It was, that's, we didn't have anybody who could compete. I mean, Kyle Busch technically was on the lead lap, but he was so damaged. He couldn't do anything. He was, way back there in 10th. So, I
was expecting some inexperience to wad things up there at the end, but they just couldn't get close enough to show each other to do it.
Yep. Absolutely. Man. And it just
no,
go ahead.
Worth mentioning, Kyle Larson gets the last place finish. Probably the only person happy to go out before the accident started.
Oh, he didn't care. Yeah. I think he was racing for second in points, which is a bonus for the playoff. But this happens to that team a lot. This is like the second or third time I recall them racing at a super speedway and blowing up within the first 15 laps.
Yeah,
it's just very strange. Yeah.
Brad Keselowski, wrong place at the wrong time, wrecks out pretty early as well.
Yeah.
Bummer for him because I think
Chris Bell was in that. I mean, that was the Blaney wreck too, wasn't it? It took out it damaged a bunch of cars in that wreck.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't, unlike the Xfinity race where we waited to the last stage to start wrecking, these guys were not shy about wrecking in this race.
No, they were wrecking early.
I think we expected.
Yeah.
How about one other thing, James? We had cars get airborne. I will.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
You could call it a win that Briscoe's car was as high in the air as it was and still came back down with the roof flaps. But we had multiple cars airborne in this race, and that scares me a little bit. I mean, usually it involves somebody getting hit to go airborne, but Briscoe didn't get hit when he went airborne.
No, and he scrubbed speed as well because that car looped around a couple of times before it got.
That one was so weird.
Yeah, these cars will lift, and they will lift even faster if we go to Talladega and there's nothing slowing these cars down,
Well,
because
I think it was Steve Letarte might have said it, or maybe it was Jeff Burton. I don't know. Somebody said it on the NBC broadcast. You talk about your commercial airliners and the size that they are.
yeah,
They take off the ground at about 170 miles an hour.
yep,
These cars are a lot lighter, and
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's not surprising that they can go airborne.
there's a
Honestly, it's
little air in
surprising
them.
they don't go airborne more often.
The one that scares me to watch is we had another jump with the front
Yeah,
tire, and that was the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. crash, um, where he was involved in that big crash. But his car did that leap thing that we saw was at
yeah,
Texas with Chastain.
yeah.
We're seeing that
You got
scares
you
me.
got big tires and plastic bodies, and that lends itself to
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
the leaping or the jumping, I guess. I don't know what we want to call that, but that spooks me, especially if we're gonna get to Talladega, because you want to see a car get in the air quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, just have them jump up and into the air like that. Now, so far we've been pretty fortunate, but we've had this happen multiple times now. I would hope that NASCAR's looking at what's going on there.
Yeah.
Because we can't have these cars making front end, especially at these tracks. We can't have them having front impact and getting up, up and over that
Yeah.
way. That's going to be scary for sure.
Denny Hamlin, I mentioned, complained about being super sore after his impact. Basically confirmed what other drivers have said about the impacts. I think, I'm sure NASCAR is looking at stuff, but I still think we need to be concerned
Yeah.
with this car and what the drivers are taking the brunt of it. And it's not just that they feel it and they're wrong. You know what
Yep.
I mean?
Yep.
I mean,
Exactly.
if anybody, I mean, obviously we had concussions with the old car. We had concussions with since we've had the soft walls, but I
Yeah.
still think we need to be nervous about what happened to Kurt Busch and how light that impact was, and continuing to get drivers come out of these cars and say the low speed impacts are the ones that hurt.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yep. Yeah. Denny was complaining about his jaw, which was
Yeah,
interesting. Which
we
makes
have
me
a lot
wonder.
more low speed impacts than we have high speed impacts in this
Yeah.
sport.
And
So we need
that,
to work on that.
yeah, and that's an above the neck, soreness for him, and
Mhm.
we've got some above the shoulder stuff here that, again, man, I just hope NASCAR's paying attention to all this. I know they're looking at the data, but when the drivers are coming out of their cars and telling you something, I hope they're listening.
Yeah.
Because we're one superstar down in the sport right now, off of an impact that, you said seems like a light impact, and
Yep.
definitely compared to something we see at Daytona, it definitely is a light impact. But come on, we gotta make sure we're watching these things. This is we've come too far in safety to become lax. We just can't do it.
And I mean, if we've learned anything from Dale Earnhardt Jr. in his situation, um, a lot of these are not one impact things. These are multiple impacts that build up over time that
Yes.
creates these issues.
Yes.
But still, I mean, anything we can do
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's still a dangerous sport, and there's still going to be injuries, no matter how safe we think it is.
That's right.
But we've had a pretty good track record up to this year, and now it's a little scary that we're getting this stuff with so many complaints with this new car.
Yep. Just something we're gonna have to, hopefully, like I said, hopefully NASCAR's keeping an eye on these things and noting these. I hope NASCAR has a busy off season. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
We get this, we get some of this stuff figured out with this new car, and God, it's not going away. I mean, we're here now. The new car's here now, and it ain't going anywhere. So we got to continue to make improvements on it.
No, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I think this car's been an overall win over the season. There are definitely issues with shifting, with aero and stuff like that on short tracks
Yeah.
and road courses. And obviously, this issue is something to look at. But when you really factor everything together, I'm not going to rip on this new car because it's been terrific. So a lot better than I expected.
Yeah, and my brother-in-law was over because we were actually going to watch the race Saturday night, and then I'm like, listen, man, this ain't happening. But we were actually having a chat, and I've mentioned before that he's a newer race fan, and he was asking me about Kurt Busch. He goes, "What's going on there?" And I just think it's important, especially for us. We're not engineers, but I think you and I can see what's going on, and I think the common fan can see what's going on. And these cars don't budge when they have impact.
Mm,
They are rocks. They bounce, And that's what I
Yep.
told him, because that NASCAR NBC was showing the Austin Dillon crash. And I said, here's a good example. With the old car, that car absorbed every single bit of impact and gave. It had a lot of give into it, but it was still safe and secure. And you look at the Austin Dillon crash in 2014 at Daytona, and it's just absolutely wild what that crash was. And heck, Ryan Newman in the Daytona 500 in 2020.
Yeah.
Again, super scary wreck, but those cars had give. And I said, look at how Austin Cindric hit the wall at Michigan, and tell me that that car budged, because it sure as heck did not budge. It bounced. It bounced off the
Yep.
wall like an overinflated basketball. Whereas the old car was like a deflated basketball. And that's basically the best way I could describe to somebody
Well,
who's still newer,
the
what it
whole
was.
chassis used to flex, and now it's just
Yes,
stiff.
it doesn't budge. Yeah. And that's why
Yeah.
you have an
And I
impact like
mean,
Kurt Busch's, and it hurts
if
him.
if you want to see an example, look at shoot, who was it? I think it was Daniel Suarez in when it rained, gets turned, goes down on the apron, and then spins up the apron
Yes,
onto the track.
it was
And
Suarez. Yep.
look at how that car teeters as it does that. And then look at video of cars in the past spinning, and you don't see wheels come up off the ground when they do that
Yep.
with the old car, because the whole car would flex when they did that. And this
Yep.
car just does not flex.
Yep. Not one bit. Not one bit. And that's the scary thing I think we're learning as we go with this car
Yep.
here. So
Yep.
but
Anything else with the Cup Series race before we go to the Xfinity Series race? James?
No, I wanted to ask you, who were you pulling for during this race as as dominoes started to fall? Because one of my favorite bullets was Brad Keselowski. He went out. And then I was all in on the Eric Jones train, and then he ran out. So
It was
then I
Eric
was just
Jones for me for sure.
yeah, and then I was just rooting for Ryan Blaney to hang on. Like that became fun for me. So is there anybody I missed there who we were kind of, Bubba? I know you had Bubba.
Yeah,
He had a
I
pretty
definitely want to
good
see.
run going.
Yeah, I want to see Bubba do well. I was kind of just looking for somebody to win to get in. I
Yeah,
really liked the Corey LaJoy story when LaJoy was up there, but it just wouldn't have mattered that
yeah,
much. I
because
mean,
he
obviously
did.
it
Yeah,
mattered for the team,
yeah,
but
yeah. He's not
that
top
wouldn't have
30
been
in
as fun.
points. Yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, I would have loved to see, as much as like I've dogged Rick Ray Racing over the season. I would have loved to see somebody like them slip a win in,
yeah,
and
yeah. It
just
would have been cool.
to take advantage of something. Anytime a small team like that, I mean, we're going to talk about it in a couple of minutes. Anytime
Yeah.
a small team like that wins, it's exciting. So,
Yep.
I don't know. I was all in on the Eric Jones train. Though I wanted Jones to get in
Yeah,
and get a
that was
win.
where that's where I kind of landed. I was I was hoping he'd have a chance, and he had some speed.
Yeah.
So there was something going on for him there, but just couldn't get it when it mattered most. So,
It
but
still
I mean,
fascinates me in these races where you see a car wreck, and then on the next restart, they're back up front contending. The one that I'm thinking
yeah,
of is Denny Hamlin.
yeah,
When Denny Hamlin got turned the first time, and then like the next, like 3 laps into the run, he's back up battling for the front. It's like, oh my God, these guys, you used to spin in these wrecks and you were done.
yeah,
It's just
yep,
incredible.
yep. It's I
With the
will
damaged
never
vehicle policy, they managed to fix these cars and get them back out there.
that right. That 12 team deserves so much credit for keeping that
Yeah.
guy alive, because man,
Yeah.
that season was over. So, yeah, that's cool stuff, man. Yeah, I don't think we're ever going back to the regular season finale being anywhere. Maybe it moves from Daytona to Talladega at some point, but we're never going back. It's
No, but
it's too good.
night racing in August in Florida is not a good option.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'd like to I'd like to see this. I mean, we can't really move it to
James,
Talladega because it rained at Talladega
I
last
checked
year. So
I checked the radar today and it's raining in Daytona. I mean,
yeah,
it rains every afternoon in Florida this time of year. And
yep.
so, I mean, I hate to run it during the day, but I think that's your best option to get this thing in. Let's do a morning race like we did.
Oh, I loved it.
And
I loved it so
yeah,
much. I loved seeing a 10 o'clock start time. It just made me so happy. But
it's
that's a story for another day.
10 a.m. on a Sunday. You can't beat it.
Yeah, no kidding.
You're not messing with the church people. They can go to church on Saturday night.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Come
8
on,
a.m.
man.
service. There's 8 a.m. service.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. NASCAR can be a form of church.
It's my church. Yes.
There you go. NASCAR Xfinity Series held a demolition derby on Saturday morning as well at Daytona and tried to wreck the entire field in the last few laps. The Wawa 250 powered by Coca-Cola kind of made a mockery out of the multiple green-white checker option at the end. And when it all came down to it, Jeremy Clements managed to get through the carnage and get his second NASCAR Xfinity Series win to the day 5 years later from
It's
his
incredible.
first Xfinity Series win.
Hey, he's driven 421 starts, man. He's okay getting one here and there.
Absolutely incredible. And then this is one of those, man. You got him. You got how big of a story Timmy Hill finishing second. That would have
I
been even
know.
bigger to see Timmy Hill get the win.
And AJ
But-
Allmendinger said, "I was just happy to get out of here alive." So
right.
he just absolutely, he looked so distraught. He's just like, I absolutely hate this place. And I'm glad when I can get out of here with the top 5 and I'm alive. So I'm like, oh my God.
Brandon Brown had the same disappointment after this one that we saw with Bubba at Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
This was a big up. I mean, this was Brandon Brown's chance to continue in this car the rest of the season, essentially.
Yeah, he had his Larry's Lemonade sponsorship. I mean, great run for Brandon.
Yeah.
But yeah, couldn't
Yeah, I mean,
he
was running well even before everybody wrecked out of it too. So
yeah. Yep.
So good run for him.
Yeah, he's had a couple of good runs this year.
5.
He's had Brandon Brown's had a couple of top 5s in recently. So he's
yeah.
Struggling, but making the most out of it. So
yeah, it's too bad they can't keep the funding together to be able to field them every week in that car because I think if they could get the funding together to make a go at it, they actually could be competitive. You could at least see them in the Ryan Sieg situation where they're a top 15 car each week. Maybe the high numbers, but still right up there. So
exactly.
Brandon Brown's team is the perfect example of just the problems with funding in the Xfinity Series right now. It's tough. It's tough here. It's tough in the Truck Series. Some of these, I guarantee you every team lost money this weekend, except maybe Jeremy Clements.
Yeah, Jeremy Clemens and maybe Richard Childress because he had 2 cars, his 2 cars in the top 2. So
yeah. So that's just this Xfinity Series is tough. So I guess I do have to commend Jesse Ouija finishing 11th in this race.
Yeah.
I cracked a joke and retweeted somebody basically saying he was going to wreck early in this thing, and he held her together and almost got a top 10 out of it. So
he did. Yeah. Jesse Luigi looked good. He had Coke Zero on the car.
Another lead lap, one of only 15 cars to do so. So
yep. And another guy I wanted to shout out, Ryan Vargas, brought to tears on pit road with his 6th place finish. I mean, that's the one thing with the Xfinity Series and these big tracks, these super speedways, is you get these Cinderella type stories, and it happens more often than not, but it's still a big deal for these guys. So that was really cool.
Seem to see it more at Talladega than Daytona, but this race was a wreck fest.
Well, it was just these guys, I mean, it was late, the rain,
I think they were falling asleep at the wheel, man. It was so late.
God. I mean, it was after 1 o'clock when we finished this race. I mean, this race finished on Sunday, so
right. We didn't start until 10:30.
I mean, it was a mess. You made a crack. It was past my bedtime, and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know if I'm not staying up for it because I'm not staying until 1 o'clock. Sorry. If it was the Cup race, I would have been all in, but I couldn't stay up. I'm just full disclosure. I can't stay up past 10 or 11 o'clock anymore. It's terrible.
You mentioned the impacts and stuff with the new car in the Cup Series. Did you see the Sheldon Creed hit and see that car just destruct?
Yeah.
My God, That was
Yeah,
that was crazy.
that was a big wreck. That was the one with John Hunter and Joe Graff, and yeah, that was.
Yep.
I'm telling you, man. We talked about the ARCA series having big wrecks the other week, but man, sometimes the Xfinity series, it has pretty big ones too. So
Had a
nothing that
lot
the
of
Cup series didn't
opportunities.
do. That too.
We had cars with all 4 tires off the ground in this one too, but fortunately
Yeah.
they all stayed for the most part on the ground this time.
Yes. Yeah.
Noah Gregson took a hell of a hit too. That was a pretty wild wreck for him.
Yeah, he had
but
this race kind of in the bag, in the bag. I'll use air quotes. It was kind of in the bag, but he dominated. Laps
yeah,
led. Before his incident, with Landon and Matt Mills and that whole bunch. Whatever the heck happened there.
yeah.
Thankfully for Landon and Noah, they both turned it around and got top tens in the Cup race. So.
Second victory for Jeremy Clements, 421 NASCAR Xfinity Series races. It is his 5th top 10 finish in 2022. And let's see, it's his 3rd top 10 finish in 25 attempts at Daytona International Raceway.
Yeah, and his other win came at Road America in the rain, did it not?
Yes, it did. I believe that was one of those transition races where they switched to slicks quicker than everybody else and were able to get ahead.
Pretty
I
cool.
mean, he outright earned that win too, but that was a fun day. That was a really good day.
Yeah, and now he's in the playoff. Looking at
Yep.
the playoff standings for the Xfinity Series, he's in 16th spot. Yep. He's got one. So yeah, the 39, the 2, the 23, and then you mentioned Brandon Brown in 15th there. They're all still in the hunt, I guess, but we've only got 3 races to go for the Xfinity Series.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else with that one worth mentioning?
I'm glad we're out of there.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, I hear you there. Let's see. AJ Allmendinger still your points leader, 58 points over Ty Gibbs in the NASCAR Xfinity Series heading into Darlington.
Yeah, he's got that one seat pretty much sewn up.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that was sealed with Allgaier, I reckon, last week. That really helped kind of solidify the top running of the Xfinity Series. So on to the news items, James. We talked about the Kurt Busch situation. I guess we can touch on it a little bit more if you want. I think, the biggest thing for me is just, either Kurt knows he's not going to be back anytime soon, or just
the doctor, the doctor knows he's not going to be cleared.
Or just praise to him for making this decision, because he could have easily just taken the 16th spot and moved along and not let anybody run for it, but he decided to step aside and let those guys battle it out with 16 drivers in the playoffs. So, it's good on Kurt, I guess.
Yeah, and it's interesting. He potentially opened the door for 2 new Toyota teams to make the playoffs, and ended up getting a Chevy and a Ford locked in.
Yeah. Right.
With his future 2311 teammate, Tyler Reddick, pushing a Chevy to the win. So,
right.
Interesting how that works out. I was skeptical that Toyota had some involvement there. I say a lot of those things tongue in cheek wise, but I'm pretty sure Kurt's got a doctor who's saying this is not happening anytime soon. You've got a long way to go. So I think we'll see Kurt Busch maybe before the end of the year, but part of me hopes we see him next year, because I don't want this to be the last chapter of Kurt Busch's career.
I don't like see anybody go out like this.
Kurt Busch's story does not end with him in a qualifying crash at Pocono.
Yeah,
that's just not. I know some guys don't get a chance to write their own ending. But Dale Jr., Dale Jr. got to end his career the way he wanted to, and I hope the same for Kurt. I know there's a lot of rumors out there with with Kyle and that, and but
difference is I don't see Kurt going on a farewell tour. I see Kurt just keep racing a season here, season, and then eventually just saying, okay, I'm done.
Yep, and
season's over. So.
Yeah, I just don't want this to be his end. Whatever way. No. If he can decide, if he gets to come back and finish this year and that's it, then that's great. And that's if that's what he wants to do. But I really don't want to see him sidelined from that Pocono crash the rest of his career being over. That just doesn't. That won't sit right with me. And I know dang well if it doesn't sit right with me, that dude, Kurt Busch, it's not sitting right with him. he'll be back. He will race somewhere along the way. And Denny Hamlin said as long as he wants that 45 car, it's his. So
well, and
he'll be back.
Denny let it slip this week too that it kind of sounds like Kurt has a long-term future with 2311, helping work on the the statistics and inside of the stuff, working with these drivers going forward, even after his career is over. So that's kind of cool to know that he's going to be around there for a while.
Absolutely. Wealth of intelligence, man. He's a champion in this sport. He's won everything. Yeah.
I hope to see him in the booth some too. He's good in the booth.
He is good in the booth. Yep. I hope to see him around for many years to come. And I don't think he's going anywhere. Kind of unlike, Jimmy Johnson. We haven't seen him come back. He's busy doing his own thing, but we'd love to see those guys stick around as much as possible.
Yep. Found out this week that Eric Almirola is on the Mark Martin retirement plan for the NASCAR Cup Series.
Well, at least he signed a multi-year deal. So we know it's at least 2 years. We know it's at least a 2-year deal. So we'll see what the rest of this looks like.
Kind of sounds like to me this was one of those, and it sounds like there were a lot of family decisions. So I really hate to lead in and kind of assume that I know what the issue is, but it kind of sounded like it was one of those things where he wanted to make the decision to be with his family, and his family decided, hey, this is what we like to do. And
we got enough of you. We've had enough of you. Go back racing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it might have been something that on the farewell tour for him that everybody kind of realized that they want to continue doing this. And, I good for Eric Almirola, good for him that he's got good support with Smithfield to sign on, and they're committing to more races with him than in previous seasons. So without Smithfield, he's not sticking around. So
right, and he's about to enter his statistical prime. I mean, he's not even 39 years old yet. So why not sign him for a 2-year deal and see what you got?
I still think he's not the greatest driver ever, but I think there's untapped potential there. I think he's got potential to be better than he is, and have a runaway season. I don't know if he's going to contend for a championship, but he's got a chance to win some races in a year and maybe make people a little surprised. If Stuart Haas can turn their stuff around and become competitive,
Yeah, and we talk about Austin Dillon. He's basically Austin Dillon. 3 career wins. He's had a top 5 points finish not that long ago in 2018. Heck, Eric, 2020, the year of the pandemic, 18 top 10s, career high. And that was a good year for Stuart Haas. So, when the cars have speed, he can perform. He won a race just last year and hasn't had statistically a very good run of late, but let's see what he can do here. He's got a couple more years to give it a try. So
Ford hasn't been lighting the world on fire. So
no, they have not.
When they start doing it again, he's got a shot. So
outside of that 4 car, that the Ford camp struggles. I mean, heck, Ryan Blaney has had a great season, but he hasn't won. So the Ford camp definitely could use a boost, if you will.
And Jim Utter gets to pat himself on the back that he did the exclusive on this one. So
and Eric Almirola was all pissy the week before about it because I think he wanted to announce it on his own terms. But Eric,
this is exactly why Denny Hamlin and Tyler Reddick announced the way they did. That is the exact reason.
They stole it themselves. Here's your transition point, Eric. I'm going to lead you into it. You ready? Here it comes.
Yeah.
So this shuts the door on Stuart Haas Racing signing a Kyle Busch.
Refresh me. Is Cole Custer officially re-signed?
That's the curious thing. Because
there's still a possibility. I find it unlikely.
They
but there's
didn't
still a possibility.
So I was listening to an executive at Stuart Haas, and all they said about Cole Custer was, and I quote, this is a direct quote, "That's the plan." When referring to him being in the 41, that's the plan.
Yeah.
So
still inks on paper though, man.
Plans change. So I guess we agree the door is not quite shut on Kyle Busch and Stuart Haas Racing.
Not quite shut. I mean, if you asked Joe Gibbs at the beginning of the season, it was his plan to keep Kyle Busch in the 18 car. So
that's right. That's right.
No, I mean, I do think that these possibilities drying up certainly leans us back to maybe Kyle ends up not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But
this is we've entered KFB corner, which we call it Kyle Busch contract watch, but we have to talk about it every week until he signs.
Right.
But Kyle, some nuggets out there. I guess we have confirmation, Eric, that he has talked to colleague and Richard Childress. We
Yep.
know that
Richard was pretty cagey in his response about.
We know that to be a fact. So that did happen.
I will be looking for any Kyle Busch sightings tomorrow at RCR, just so you know. If there's
Eric.
anything that,
bring your binoculars. Bring your binoculars.
If I see a Toyota Tundra rolling in the back or something, I'm gonna be all perked up.
So this got me. So I'm glad you said Toyota Tundra. So
yeah,
David Wilson says basically losing Kyle Busch is catastrophic and doesn't want to face a pissed off Kyle Busch. Why couldn't Toyota go to colleague and say, hey, listen, Kyle Busch probably wants some ownership stake. Let's bring him in. Let's become a Toyota team, and then you've got the Truck Series team to help feed. Why isn't that part of the discussion? Am I the first person who's brought that up to you, or why couldn't
I don't know?
Why couldn't
I don't know, James? But I will say that listening to David Wilson talk about Kyle this week certainly sounded like a manufacturer that's not so sure that their star driver is going to stick around.
That's right. Yeah,
I mean,
he didn't sound confident.
It certainly sounded curious. I would think he'd be a lot more confident than the way he sounded if there was something close for Kyle.
So, Eric, an announcement being made from Kyle Busch, because this week his quote was, I have an announcement, I have no announcement. When does Kyle Busch come into the media center and say, I have an announcement, and it is actually an announcement? Are we waiting for playoff elimination at this point? Or because we're getting late. It's getting late now. We're really late for something to happen here. What do you think?
I guess I don't know.
It's a distraction. The rest of the season, it's a distraction until he signs.
Yeah, Kyle Busch isn't going to win a championship this year.
Not with this looming over their head. Not the way it is.
The only way he wins a championship is he comes in the media center on Saturday morning at Darlington and says, I'm announcing that I've signed with JGR for the next 6 years or something like that. That would turn things around. But right now, I think there's too much uncertainty unless everybody knows something and they just can't announce it. But I mean, just the questions. I mean, James, how many times can you answer the contract questions?
Oh God,
how many
it's
times
terrible.
Can you say, and you can't blame Bob Pockers. You can't blame Claire B. Lane. You can't blame these reporters for asking these questions. That's their job.
Exactly.
But God, Kyle's just got to be so sick of answering questions.
And Eric, I think Kyle Busch's demons are finally coming home to roost on him at this point, because you've got Eric Almirola, who's been nothing but class for Smithfield.
Yeah.
Not much of a winner. He's got 57 wins less than Kyle Busch. But Smithfield not afraid to come back to the Eric Almirola well for a multi-year contract. And I know Eric Almirola is a lot cheaper than Kyle Busch. I get that. But come on, there's not a sponsor that's currently in this sport that couldn't say, man, I wish I could get on that 18 car with that guy. I mean, come on.
Where is your rebellious sponsor? Your rebellious company, like a Budweiser or I mean, Monster's a great example, but obviously Monster's out to play with Rowdy.
He boxed himself out on that one. Yep.
I mean, there's got to be somebody that wants a fiery personality like him.
Or has he burned the bridge? He might have burned it all down by now.
Maybe. Man. James, I don't think you can argue that part of Kyle's problem is his past.
Yeah.
Part of it is the asking price. Part of it is the past. He certainly has burned bridges that just aren't available for him because there are certain companies that just are not going to put their name on his race car.
Yeah, like the Home Depot is not coming back to be in business with Kyle Busch. But Kurt Busch handled his reputation pretty well after he hit rock bottom. Maybe this is rock bottom for Kyle. I don't know.
I mean, certainly if Kyle has to sit out next year because he doesn't have a ride, it'll certainly be a humbling thing.
That's just nonsense. I won't stand for that.
It won't happen. He's going to end up somewhere.
Yeah, I can't believe
somebody's going to get a bargain.
Yeah, man, every week we do this. All right, so here's the question. You ready? Where's Kyle Busch racing next year? We got to do it every week. Where's he racing?
I heard a lot of colleague this week.
Yeah. So you think colleague?
Colleague seems like the choice this week.
Okay. I said Joe
How
Gibbs
about-
Racing
Yeah,
last week. I'll stick with Joe Gibbs Racing for now.
sticking with Joe Gibbs. Okay.
Yeah, I still think he'll come back one more time.
I don't remember. Did I say RCR last week? I think I said RCR.
I think you did
last week,
RCR.
didn't
I did think you said RCR last week, and we had
Yeah.
a whole rift about hold my watch. So
Yeah. Well,
Pop.
Richard said this week that they have overcome that and they are on good terms and all that's behind them. So
oh, look at Richard go. Look
Yeah.
at him go. Yep. Oh man.
One other news item that we missed, certainly worth mentioning.
Yes.
Probably missed it because we kind of announced it a couple weeks ago, suspecting it was going to happen. But the Truck Series has a new sponsor for next year, and it is a flash of the past.
I'm
The
so excited.
Craftsman Truck Series returns.
I love it. Oh man, isn't
I know,
that
I'm
great?
excited too. It's
Oh,
good.
man.
Good stuff. It's
telling
always good to see a sponsor come back.
Oh yeah, it's so good to call it the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series again. The only thing that could top it is the NASCAR Busch Series or the Winston Cup Series. Other than that, this is as good as it gets.
I still, they've got the NASCAR Cup Series, they got the NASCAR Truck Series. I wish they would make it the NASCAR Grand National Series and just have it the Xfinity Grand National Series or whatever it is. But
yeah,
for some reason they let that slide and aren't going back to it. But no, happy to see Craftsman back. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
It just feels right. In fact, let's go all the way, James. Let's call them the Craftsman Super Trucks again.
There you go. Yep. Yep. I'm good with that.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, I've seen that red logo come back. Oh, beautiful. Doesn't get much better than that.
It looked awesome. Everybody was excited at Daytona because they put them up in the backstop of the victory lane. So you could see it from the stands in the rain and then nobody knew what was going on.
Yep.
But yeah, that was pretty cool.
And it all came down.
So Reddit broke the story originally because it was up at Daytona. So
yep. Good stuff. Man.
All right, James. We get to play our favorite game. We're not doing a whole bracket this year because it's just time consuming and we end up picking the same bracket anyway.
and Eric's traveling.
Yeah, I'm traveling. I didn't put a bracket together today. So let's do. You suggested we do first four out. So let's do that. Do you have your idea? Do you want to go first with your first?
Yeah,
four
I thought. Out? Yeah, I'll just do my four and then you can do your four. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay, so my first four out. I'm gonna go Austin Dillon.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Austin Cindric. So the Austin's not so good. I'll say those guys are the first two out. And then I hate to say it. I hate to. I'm not going to do it. I was going to say Chase Briscoe. I'm not doing it. I will say Daniel Suarez is out.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, it's getting dicey there. And then I'm going to say that I got to pick some. I can't go complete chalk. I will say that Kevin Harvick will go out. The first four out.
Okay.
So the Austins, Suarez, and Harvick will fall out. I was gonna say Alex Bowman, but I just can't. I can't go chalk there and knock all four of those guys out. So, so those would be my four.
All right, I like that. You're gonna write down for me on the notes.
Yep, I'll write down for you. You go for it. Yep, go for it.
All right, I am going to start with. I am gonna say Briscoe's out. So take Briscoe out.
Okay.
I am going to go Alex Bowman.
Okay.
I am going to go Christopher Bell.
Ooh, that's a spicy one.
I have a spicier one. I am going to go against what I've said, and I'm going to say the time is right, James. We're going to Darlington. We're going to Bristol. Is this round right? Does Bristol
Darlington, Kansas, then Bristol. Yep.
So I am going to say that that Ross Chastain doesn't make it out of the first round.
My goodness.
Gotta take a long shot, right?
Because he's going to get wrecked at Bristol.
Kyle Busch said in his media session that he thinks everybody's waiting to get him. And you got Darlington and Bristol, which are great opportunities to do it.
Yep. That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
So I think
didn't think about
he's going
that.
to have a lot of targets on his
So
tail
we
going
each
in.
have 4 different guys. I like your list better than mine, to be honest with you. So we'll mark that one on the timesheet. But yeah, I like your list better than mine.
I'm taking a
I'm
pretty big risk leaving Dillon in because I really don't think Dillon's going to be real competitive, but it's hard to
yeah.
say. You know,
Man, Briscoe's had some great runs at Darlington. That's why, and then he almost won Bristol Dirt. So I don't know
the
what to do
problem
with it.
with Briscoe is Briscoe's had some great runs, but he's also had some terrible runs.
That's the thing. Like he can steal a win and be terrible at the same time. Same thing with Alex
Yeah, that's true.
Bowman. Same thing with
That's
Alex
true.
Bowman. Bowman has not been good all year, but he could still win. I don't know what to do with that
I
guy.
think I think Bowman being out in the first round is a bigger risk for me than Chastain is. I think, like I said,
If
I think Chastain's going to have a target.
if Bowman doesn't turn this thing around in these 3 races, what a complete disaster for that team. Not that
Yeah,
I didn't expect it. I'm not a huge Bowman. I'm not a Bowman believer, but that team should be better than 15th in the point standings where they're at right now.
I
There is
agree.
no reason for that team to be where they're at in this standings. Eric, before we go to our next segment, I did find our
Yes,
preseason document. Did you look at it?
I did look at it, but
Okay.
I will give you the pleasure
You want to
of
give me the
pointing out
floor?
things you want to point out. Yeah,
So we're still alive. We're still alive on our big gambles. I had Tyler Reddick making the final 4. I'm not confident in that, but he can do it. And then you have
I think that's a pretty good.
Harvick, and Bush not making the final 4, and I'm gonna tell you that seems pretty solid. So you might be
I don't
on there.
know. I think Denny is going to
He's
shift into a
dangerous.
different gear for the playoffs.
Yeah, he's pretty dangerous.
I stand by the other two, but I think Denny's gonna come alive.
Yep. Yep. Team to watch. You had RCR, and by God, you got 2 playoff teams out of it. I said
That ended
Kaulig.
up being a good. That looked bad
Yeah,
early in the season, but that turned
and
out to be pretty good.
I know none of us said Trackhouse. I said Kaulig,
No,
and Kaulig hasn't done much. I thought maybe Allmendinger would steal the win, and JJ or Haley, Justin Haley, almost snuck into the playoffs there late at Daytona.
yeah, he did.
So maybe we could have called that a tie, I guess, but nope, no tie there. 2 drivers who made the playoffs who won't make it. We nailed it, Eric. We did really good. McDowell and
Yeah,
Almirola. We both said McDowell and Almirola, so we did good. 2
pretty
new
good.
playoff drivers. We each got 1. You had Dillon and Bubba. I had Eric Jones and Austin Cindric. So I got the Daytona 500 winner, and you got the Coke 400 winner. So
There you go.
good
Hey, we
on us
don't sound
there.
like we don't know what we're doing that much, do
No,
we?
we sound pretty good.
Well, until
Yeah.
we get to the next one.
Yeah. So the next one, who'll be the first driver to win a race, first time winner this season. We had Reddick. It was Briscoe, but Reddick did win, so we both had that.
Yeah, but he was only the last first time winner.
I guess, yeah. So technically, I guess we got it, but we didn't at the same time.
Right.
Best race, still to be determined. You had Daytona cutoff. I feel like
I'm wrong.
Yeah, the door was left open on that one because I have
Yeah.
Bristol night race, and that's the next cutoff race we have. So we're gonna find out what happens there.
Yeah.
Worst race.
What did we say? What did we say was the best race so far?
Oh
I think
man,
we agreed on it. I don't remember which one it was.
Watkins Glen was pretty dang good, man. Watkins Glen, I
I
know
feel like
that
there
might
was
be
one.
recent. That might be recency bias, but Watkins Glen was good. And Peck, Michigan was really good. That's more
Yeah, there was
recency
one earlier in the
bias.
season that we were. I mean, we had
Auto
the first
Club.
5 weeks was really good. Auto Club was really good.
Auto Club was really good. Darlington, Darlington 1 was really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been a handful of them. Yeah, I feel like you left the door open with that one. It's not over yet.
Right.
And then worst race of the season, I had Pocono, you had Texas. I think you got that one. You won that one pretty
Probably.
easily. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna have a worse race. We're not gonna have a worse race than
Pocono
Texas.
certainly is not the worst of what we had so far. So
No, God, no. No.
Richmond, I would argue, probably Richmond.
Oh
won.
yeah, Richmond 1 was pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Texas, I think, takes the cake. That might
Phoenix
be a
one was
perennial
pretty
pick.
bad too.
Yeah, Phoenix 1 was pretty bad, but they had Briscoe winning, which was exciting.
True.
Final 4. Eric, your final 4, you're out. You're out with one. You have one guy out already.
Yeah.
So Larson, Chase, and Martin Truex Jr. and Joey Logano. So obviously Martin Truex Jr. is out.
I'm sticking with Larson and Chase, and that's it.
Yeah, that's probably Joey. I'm not counting Joey out yet. Joey's like he's putting it together, I feel like. My final four: Reddick, Larson, Byron, Blaney. And I am leaking confidence in all of those guys. I feel more solid about Larson than probably any of them. But we've got some tracks that Byron could be fast at, so we'll see. But Blaney, I don't know.
Larson's going to be in the final four. I think Reddick's got a pretty good shot.
You can make the final four, but you have to win at some point. So Blaney's got to win here. And then our champion, I had Larson, you had Joey Logano. I actually like Joey Logano a little bit better at this point in the season, but
I don't. I like Larson better.
Man, I just feel like Joey's just been getting a little stronger. But then again, Larson just won at Watkins Glen. So
if you had to pick a champion right now, who are you picking?
Oh my God. That's so tough. I still think
I don't think it is.
I
don't think it is. And it's not my pick, but
I don't know, man. Because I want to say
Chase Elliott.
I want to say but I want to say that. But then you take one of his wins away that went to Denny Hamlin. They both got 3 wins, so Denny's not that far off. I guess it's probably Chase. He's had the fastest piece all year. He's kind of irritated too, which I like. So it's probably got to be Chase at this point. He's got the points too. So for now, I'll say Chase.
There you go. Let's see. We go into Darlington Raceway this weekend, James, and I'm already down here.
You are down there
on Saturday. Yes, I am. So
pretty cool.
We'll have the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series in action this weekend. The NASCAR Xfinity Series, it's the Sports Clips Haircuts VFW Help a Hero 200.
Wow.
Might be the longest race name of the season. Although I'm pretty sure there was a Truck Series one in there that was a little bit longer. Before we make our picks, I do get to pick first again this week. James, I caught back up to you, but you are still 6 points ahead. So I get the first pick. Your Brad Keselowski pick killed you this week with only 2 points. But Austin Hill redeemed you.
He did. He kept me alive.
Kept you alive.
Yep.
So NASCAR Xfinity Series at Darlington, I'm going to go with a past NASCAR Xfinity Series winner. And I'm going to go with JRM, and I'm going to go with Justin Allgaier as my pick.
Justin Allgaier. Nice. He'll be good at Darlington. Yep. I'm also going to go JRM. I haven't picked this guy in a long time. It's been like 10 weeks or so. I'll take Noah Gragson. I'll go tit for tat with you there. I think he's going to have
probably be 1 and 2.
Yeah, probably. It's some order. Yep.
And then Sunday, it is the crown jewel, one of the crown jewels of the NASCAR Cup Series. It is the Cookout Southern 500. And James, I am going to go with a historically good Darlington racer. I am going to go with somebody who I just said is going to be a different guy in the playoffs. And I'm going Denny Hamlin to be the first one to lock into the next round of the playoffs with a win at Darlington.
Denny Hamlin. Eric, I'm looking at our list. I want to make sure I got this correct. This is your first use of Mr. Hamlin all season.
There you go.
So good call. I'm going to go with somebody who should have won the first Darlington race. I'm going to go with William Byron.
That's a good pick.
I'm hoping to see that playoff glow from Mr. Byron. Last 2 times I picked him, it's been a disaster. So this might be my last pick of Mr. Byron this year. I have confidence in you, man. Come on. Let's go.
There you go. Fantasy League, I'm not even going to talk about it because I will come out and say I was traveling and completely forgot to make my picks. So I finished dead last with 60 points. James, how'd everybody else do this weekend?
Well, not great for most of us. We all
176 was the winner, so that's
Green Eggs and Hamlin won. Hot Rod Todd second, Freight Train third. I was way back there, and Eric, you were last. I made an executive decision to bench Ryan Blaney, which was dumb because he kept pointing his way through the field, so that cost me 20. Overall points, I still hold a 113 point lead over Green Eggs and Hamlin. Fast to the Grass is third, and Ranger rounds out the top 4. He's still lurking, so we got ourselves a championship battle. And just a reminder to our fantasy racing league guys, a little bit of a reset because of the playoffs. Playoff drivers get 5 starts, so use them wisely. There you go.
Shout out. It is time for shout outs. James, I'm going to kick things off because I'm going to shout out the folks at Bowman Gray Stadium because today they had the gates open in the pit area and I could walk out onto the track and see the madhouse in all its glory
Oh,
in
man.
person. Unfortunately, no racing going on. It's there. The goalposts are up in the end zones. It's football season here at Bowman Gray.
Yep.
But man, it was pretty cool to step foot in that place and see the place where so much history has gone down in NASCAR.
You sent a great
Just
selfie too.
absolutely incredible. It's not at all what I expected. I did not expect it to be the way it is. It's kind of, you'd almost miss it if you drove by it, and it's one of those things. You see it, it seems larger than life, and then you get there and it's like, oh, this place isn't very big at all.
Right. Yep.
So
It's pretty well. I
but
mean, it's a racetrack around a football field. So
yeah,
yeah, it makes
exactly.
sense.
Basically, if you were to race on the running track at your high school, that's what this is.
That's pretty cool,
So,
man.
but very cool to step in. I didn't walk all the way out on the track, but I did step into the entrance to the pits and got to touch the old guardrail and stand in the place where so much history has been made. And probably several fights have occurred right in the spot I was standing.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Several thousand fights.
Security and police have been called to that location multiple times.
Oh my God. That's so great.
It was nice to walk in completely unimpeded. So that was pretty cool. The boys got to see it and they didn't understand what the big deal was, but
someday they will.
It's awesome.
Someday
we almost didn't do it, but we went into town and we were close by. We were a mile and a half away. And it's like, come on, I'm a mile and a half away from Bowman Gray. I got to go check it out. So
gotta go look at it. Just wanted to look at it. Feel the ghost.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Awesome. Eric, my shout out this week is I'll start by asking you a question. What is the one thing from the old Tri-City Motor Speedway days that you miss the most? Though if there was one thing that you could bring back to the blacktop out there, what would it have been? I think I might know your answer, but you'll probably
Oh
not.
wow, that's hard. Like
I'll give you
I don't even know where to go. Yeah.
They used to race around the quarter mile, the short track. Do you remember? Is this jogging your memory of one of my favorite things?
The mini cup cars?
No, the spectator drags.
Oh yes.
See, now that I've said it, you're like, oh yes, I remember the great spectator drags.
Were awesome.
So there is an account on Instagram. I'm really good at finding these. Don't ask me why. It's called tberg.media on the gram. And if you go to his reels, he has a whole catalog of spectator drags. And I don't know where they're taking place at. I haven't dove into it that far, but it is my favorite thing I found on Instagram in a while. So
I have found a bunch on YouTube. I do know that Dixie Motor Speedway does them for their Eve of Destruction, or Birch Run Speedway now it's called. Man.
Yeah,
but it's not done every week anywhere like it used to be back at Tri-City. Tri-City was every Friday night.
Man,
I wanted my dad so bad to take the old Ford Tempo out there, and he never did it.
I remember an S10 going off the backstretch and flipping over.
I remember a couple of very nice Cadillacs that turned right into each other as soon as they passed the flagman and just smashed into each other all the way around a track and destroyed those cars.
Spectator drags. What a joy of local short track racing. So yep, tberg.media.
That was incredible.
That's my.
That was tough, James, because when you ask me what I miss about Tri-City,
there's so many. Yeah, there's so many things.
I'm an asphalt guy. I love the fact that it's a successful dirt track, but I would give anything to turn that thing back into an asphalt track again
and see the super late models come around one more time.
Oh, nothing like watching Mike Eddy and Bob Seneker and Chaz Howe and Steve Sovey run that dogleg on the backstretch at Tri-C. I'm sorry, because most of the people listening to this have no idea what we're talking about.
No, we've been down this road before, but no. Bill the Hammer Higgins, come on.
Yeah, man.
Oh, man.
Ray Malin. Yep. Those are the days, man.
Those are our youth, man. Yep, that's our youth. Sorry, people. We divulge.
And on that note, it's time for Jackass Corner. James, you got a jackass to kick things off with this week?
Man, this is always tough for me. I'm trying to be a nicer person. I think that's why.
Loney. I don't buy it.
It's I'm actually gonna every once in a while.
You coined Jackass Corner, by the way. I did. I came up with the idea for it, but you named it.
I did name it Jackass Corner. Actually, every once in a while I like to give it to myself, and there was there was a moment on Saturday night where I said, there's no way in hell I'm watching this Xfinity Series race. And there wasn't. There was no way in hell I was watching that Xfinity Series race. So I went to bed. So for somebody who hosts a NASCAR podcast, I probably should pay attention to the Xfinity Series a little bit deeper than that and actually try. Didn't even try.
I made my wife drive in the mountains to watch the Cup race.
I didn't even try to watch that Xfinity Series race. So I'm a jackass for that. So I'm going to give it to myself this week and be completely honest, because that was way too late for me. I'm sorry.
I can't argue with you on that. I was going to give the Jackass Award to NASCAR for the not calling the race before the rain came, but as I think we've discussed in this podcast and come to the conclusion of, certainly could have improved that situation a little bit, but maybe not anything they could have done enough to really stop that. So I'll take NASCAR off the board for that one. And I'm going to instead give it to the NASCAR Xfinity Series drivers for their performance and the green, white checkers at the end of the NASCAR Xfinity Series race, which you probably would give it to them too, James, if you were awake to watch the race. So
that's right. Yeah. Yep. Couldn't do it, man. Didn't even try. I can't remember. There's a handful of times every year where I don't try, and it's usually around the Xfinity Series of but that really was like, there was a concerted effort from me not to try. So
I stress myself out every week when I have stuff going on and I have to find a way to fit the races in. There's nothing worse than Supercross season when I have a Supercross to try and squeeze in, or SRX season when I'm trying to get the SRX races into, because there's just too many races on the weekend to get in. That's why I don't follow Formula One or IndyCar real close, because I just can't keep up. Too much.
Yep, there's too much going on.
With a family, they prefer, like, I suppose if I was actually getting paid for this, if this was like a legit job, I could get away with sitting in front of the TV all day on Saturday and Sunday, but it's a little tougher when it's really just for fun.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's just not happening.
Before we cut off here, I guess I don't know that I want to brag, but I want to kind of just give a little update on what my plans are for the week here, as I am in North Carolina and heading to South Carolina for the weekend. Down here originally, of course, for the resurgence of North Wilkesboro Speedway. Track's about an hour away from where we're staying. So the plan is to head out there tomorrow night and watch Dale Jr. qualify. And on Wednesday night, watch Dale Jr. race, and Cars Tour race, limited late models racing, street stocks racing tomorrow night. Lots of racing going on at North Wilkesboro. Sounds like planning to sell out, and it sounds like they might even be seating people in turns 1 and 2 this time, which they haven't for the previous races. So it could be a really big crowd at North Wilkesboro this weekend.
Pretty cool.
Very excited about that. And of course, in the Charlotte or in the North Carolina area, NASCAR country, as I said, all kinds of NASCAR plans as well. And we're going to head to early morning tomorrow and head to the Richard Childress Museum and shops and check that out. Now there's some other shops right around there, so we might buzz into those as well. We have plans later in the week to do Joe Gibbs Racing, Penske, Stuart Haas, Junior Motorsports. We got the tour scheduled for Junior Motorsports on Friday morning. And then what was the other one? What the heck was the other one? I don't remember. There's we're doing Hendrick too is the plan. If I didn't mention that, and we're also going to do the NASCAR Hall of Fame. So we're checking all that stuff out. Probably going to buzz by Charlotte Motor Speedway because, of course, I can't pass a racetrack without checking it out. And then we head down on Friday evening to Florence, South Carolina, where we're going to stay about a half hour away from Darlington, and 2 races at Darlington this weekend. So
awesome. So when you're at Hendrick, I was going to say when you're at Hendrick, you're going to be right by Charlotte, so that'll be perfect. And when I was there, now this was a while ago, but you could walk into the grandstands and check it out. So
that'd be pretty cool. I hope that's the case. But Hendrick's I'm a little skeptical because their website says they're still closed to the public. But from what I read on Reddit, the museum's open. They've remodeled the museum there, so it's probably different than what it was like when you were there.
Will you do me a favor and get a picture of Cole Trickle's car when you're at Hendrick? That would make my day.
Come on, James. Who are you talking to? I'm gonna have so many pictures this week.
All right, cool. Yep. Good.
I've even been. I don't do the selfie thing very often, but I've been doing selfies this week too because there's only so many opportunities you can get. You can have to have a selfie at Bowman Gray Stadium. So,
yeah. I think you're gonna like some of these places, man. Joe Gibbs Racing is pretty nice. The JR Motorsports one, I'm excited for you about that because that's actually gonna be really cool.
Oh, KBM. I didn't mention KBM. We're gonna go KBM too.
Yeah, that's the other one. There you go. Yep.
Oh, I think I need to add it to my tour. I don't think I put them on my list. 'Cause can't. Oh my god, if I miss KBM, I'm gonna be still mad at myself.
There you go. Watch yourself now. Be careful. Be
Right.
careful. That's a full week of racing headed your way, buddy.
Yeah, we today we were supposed to go into Charlotte and do some stuff today, but we decided to just cool it after 10 hours of travel coming down here. So
Yeah. When's the Hall of
we
Fame?
just chilled out today.
When's-
Hall of Fame is probably going to be Friday. No, Thursday evening, I think. Thursday
Okay.
afternoon, evening.
Okay, cool.
Because we're staying in Charlotte on Thursday.
Yeah,
night, so
you're gonna love you will love the Hall of Fame.
I know,
My
I'm
only
excited.
regret is I didn't have enough time in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
I wish I was there longer. There's so much stuff.
my kids are excited about the simulators. So
Oh yeah, the sims are cool. Yeah, it's a big racing, like it's pretty cool. The sim looks like a racing grid and there's cars all over. It's pretty sweet.
yeah, I've been checking out the videos. So I
Yeah,
can't
the
wait.
boys
It's gonna
are
be
gonna
cool.
get a kick. Yeah, it is gonna be cool.
That's my bad thread all week when they're not good. Is like you're not gonna get to race the simulator.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Come on, boys. Be
Gotta
good.
be a parent. Gotta be
Yep.
a parent.
Yep.
James, where can everybody find you on social media during the week?
At James Cush on Twitter.
You can find me at T Super Speedway on Twitter. I'll try and do better of putting some of the stuff on Twitter. I really haven't at all. But certainly we'll have some stuff up from North Wilkesboro this week, and a ton from Darlington next weekend. So again, I'm a member of the media for Darlington, so I'll have typical access. And I don't think there'll be a special Saturday night podcast this time like there was at Michigan. But we'll certainly have some audio for next week, going into next week's podcast. So at T Super Speedway on Twitter, you can find me there. You can find me the podcast on Facebook, facebook.com/the Super Speedway. Our website is thesuperspeedway.com. You can find old episodes of the podcast, show notes, links to articles we discussed, past race coverage, photos, and much, much more. Wherever you found us today, we hope you subscribe and continue to listen. That comes after the next part, Eric, not this part. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Now, where you found us, we hope you subscribe. Subscribe for new episodes each week and much, much more. So, Darlington Raceway this weekend, North Wilkesboro this week. There'll be plenty of content for you all next week. We'll be back to break down the start of the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs and preview Kansas as we get ready to roll through the mid part of round number 1. Until then, everybody, let's go racing.